And now, The Federal Drive with Terry Gerton, sponsored by GEHA.
Welcome to The Federal Drive on Federal News Network. It's Friday, March 20th. I'm your host, Terry Gerton, and I'm glad you're here. Coming up on this hour of The Federal Drive, with drones now touching everything from security to agriculture, the University of Texas at El Paso is gearing up to train the people and build the technology that this new landscape demands. Plus, a mixed reality rollout from the Army National Guard is giving students a first-hand look at the skills and careers behind disaster response. Those stories and much more ahead during this hour of The Federal Drive. We begin with this. The Pentagon's ambitious Golden Dome missile defense system is getting more expensive. New estimates from the Defense Department put the price tag at $185 billion. That is $10 billion more than the president originally said it would cost. But some analysts say the new estimate is no more believable than the president's initial price tag. Federal News Network's Anastasia Obis is here with more details. Anastasia, great to have you.
Hi, Terry.
It feels like we're not very far into Golden Dome yet. How is the price tag going up by $10 billion?
Yeah, so this initiative has been shrouded in secrecy. So we haven't had a lot of details in public, but General Michael Goodline, who is the Golden Dome's program manager, spoke a little bit about the project in this kind of rare on-the-record talk at an industry conference. He said the Pentagon is now at $185 billion for the objective architecture that delivers into the 2035 timeframe. Now, initially, President Donald Trump said that the Golden Dome would be 100% effective, completed in about 3 years, and cost about $175 billion. So we're up by $10 billion. General Goodline said that the extra money is now needed to support additional capabilities that would include airborne moving target indication, space data networking, and hypersonic missile tracking. He said that they were also asked to accelerate delivery. As for the timeline, while Trump said that they would have a fully operational capability in 3 years, General Goodline said that he doesn't have a mandate in the original executive order to deliver it by 2028, but the president asked to deliver it as fast as they can. So by the summer of 2028, the Defense Department needs to demonstrate an operational capability that works in the field that can defend against those threats identified in the executive order.
So $185 billion is the Pentagon's internal estimate. Are there external estimates of the price and delivery timeline?
Yeah, so right after President Trump released that estimate, the Congressional Budget Office analyzed potential costs of space-based interceptors designed to counter a limited North Korean threat using outdated assumptions. They estimated that this limited system could cost between $161 billion to $542 billion. So again, that is a very limited system. At the same time, the American Enterprise Institute, which is a conservative think tank, examined the cost of a more expansive Golden Dome architecture that would defend against a broad range of threats. They evaluated 6 potential architectures, and they came to a conclusion that with 20-year costs ranging from $252 billion for a limited tactical defense to $3.6 trillion for a robust architecture. And that $3.6 trillion number would include operations, maintenance, and replenishment costs. The Institute also said that this $175 billion cost would at best be capable of intercepting only a handful of incoming missiles.
Well, that's quite a range of estimates. Has General Goodline given any perspective on how he rationalizes all of those?
Yeah, so he said that, and I quote, "The difference between what they're estimating and what we're building is they're not estimating what we're building." So he says that those projections estimate a very large, complex capability that is fully integrated using technologies that they currently use overseas. That type of system is very expensive, manpower intensive, and meant to operate independently. But he said this is a different type of system that they're trying to build for homeland defense. And when it comes to homeland defense, they're taking a more simplified approach. He said he's confident that the price for a system like that would not exceed $185 billion.
This feels a little bit like a ping pong conversation. Do the outside agencies think that he's on the? Do the outside agencies think he's on the mark?
So I spoke to one analyst. He said that those numbers do not add up. It's no surprise that the price is going up, but at the same time, the new estimate is just no more credible than the original estimate. Gabe Murphy from Taxpayers for Common Sense said that Goodline's suggestion that deploying missile defense systems overseas are more expensive than a homeland system overlooks the fact that defending the entire country against all missile threats as it's laid out in the executive order as the president wants this system to do would require defending a much larger area. And it would require the system to defend against way more advanced threats than missile defense system deployed abroad are currently defending against. But more importantly, the technological challenges facing the program are likely, and I quote, insurmountable. And even if we spent $3.6 trillion on Golden Dome, the program would still not be able to achieve its main objective of reliably defending the United States from nuclear weapons and all the nuclear threats.
Well, Congress made a down payment on this system, $23 billion that they provided in last year's reconciliation bill. Have they gotten any briefings or transparency on how that money is being spent from the Department of Defense?
General Goodline said that he has personally briefed all 6 committees numerous times, and that would include detailed cost on what Golden Dome would cost over time. Now, in the 2026 NDAA, congressional appropriators asked the Pentagon to provide complete budgetary details for Golden Dome, and at the same time, the White House wasn't releasing the money Congress allocated, which means that defense contractors weren't able to start the work. General Goodline said that all the funding for Golden Dome has started to flow and that they've been working with OMB on execution of those funds.
That's Federal News Network's Anastasia Obis. Thanks for joining me with this story. I'm sure we'll see more as the program develops.
Oh, definitely. Thank you, Terry.
You can find her full story at federalnewsnetwork.com. Up next, a mixed reality rollout from the Army National Guard is giving students a first-hand look at the skills and careers behind disaster response. This is the Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network. A new program called Disasterville brings National Guard missions into schools through a mix of physical props and virtual reality, letting students step into the middle of a flood, wildfire, or earthquake response. It's part of a broader effort to build awareness of the Guard's role in disaster relief. Here to explain the effort is Staff Sergeant Adam Szabo from the National Guard Bureau. Staff Sergeant Szabo, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Terry. Good morning.
I am so excited to hear about this. I want you to tell us about Disasterville. Right. What is this from the National Guard's perspective?
So Disasterville is actually it's going to be an implementation through the form of virtual reality headsets and simulations for high school students, faculty, anybody that will be involved on site. But it's going to be kind of a mock disaster relief situation that's going to be taking place in high school gymnasiums across the country this spring. So in the form of earthquakes, flash floods, and wildfires, these high school students are going to run through 3 10-minute simulations that are going to mimic and show what the National Guard responds to and how we support our local community, our state. And we even have, there's different obstacles that they have set up, missions. We even have an inflatable Zodiac, inflatable boat. So in teams of 5, they'll be working through these simulations, trying to rescue citizens, pets. They'll be sitting in the boat acting like they're paddling oars, even picking up, like the fire hose, and also, putting out wildfires and, clearing debris. So this will all be taking place in high school gymnasiums throughout the country this spring.
This sounds like a pretty high-tech adventure. What motivated the National Guard to create something like this and then roll it out?
So we noticed there was, kind of a gap. A lot of these high school students, they may be unaware of the different missions that the Army National Guard specifically handles. So one of our main responses, and unfortunately in the last couple months, last few years, natural disasters are more frequent than ever, sadly. But the Army National Guard is always ready to answer that call. So we want to show them that side of helping out our fellow citizens too, and anybody in the area that we can assist with these natural disasters. So with these 3 focuses, they get a chance to get to feel for that through virtual reality.
There's got to be a recruitment angle to this as well, right? Yes,
absolutely too, because we're looking for those uncommon individuals too, that maybe want to be a part of a mission or an objective or just a focus that's bigger than themselves in the form of helping their fellow citizens. So absolutely, and we would like to if they're looking to get involved, this is what we have to offer, and this is the good side or a really great side of the National Guard that I personally been a part of.
I'm sure that you must have tried this out before you're getting ready to take it on the road. What does the experience look and feel like when you're actually in the middle of it?
I can tell you this is my first time doing a virtual reality headset. I never played, I'm not a big video game person per se, but trying this out with the rest of my staff, it's a lot of fun, but it's not too realistic where, it makes the students nervous. It's enough where they get excited about it too. And you see them smiling ear to ear, with their friends, even the teachers, that are coming by, their staff. They're having a great time, and we got to try it out at the DC Armory, I believe, 2 weeks ago. And I've never seen, well, not never, but I've seen kids just so happy, and they were just having the best time with it. So we're looking to bring that energy throughout schools this spring.
What kind of questions are you getting from the students?
They're asking, hey, have you done this before? How frequent? Hey, can we do it again? That's always a question too. Can we go through it again? More just asking about, since this was activated in DC, there, with the 3 focuses of earthquakes, wildfires, and flash floods, I guess it wasn't relevant to the disasters itself, but more so just, hey, have you done this before too, and what's it like?
And how about the response from teachers and school administrators? What have they been saying?
I mean, they're what I've seen too, and after speaking with a few of them, they were just appreciative the kids were having fun with it. It's a nice field trip. So after talking to them and seeing our staff interact too, they were, they're happy to see the kids having fun too and enjoying it.
So you mentioned that this is done through virtual reality, but you also said they get to paddle a boat. How are the physical demands replicated in these kinds of adventures?
For this event too, it's not really physically demanding. So it's you're actually you're simulating. So you'll have the headset on, and you'll see a paddle oar or the jaws of life, but you're not. It's not actually lifting up heavy. Simulating like a chainsaw or anything, but it feels like it's right in your hand with the headset on too. So, when you have, with it all being virtual reality, it feels like, it's a simulation, but it's not necessarily physically demanding for this. So really anybody could do it, and there's no physical, setbacks on this.
You mentioned the 3 scenarios. Do they change as you go to different geographical areas?
Correct. Yeah. So with these 3 different, it's basically 3 stations. So, and the reason we chose the earthquakes, the flash floods, and the wildfires, just because we feel like those are the most prevalent too that we responded to. But so you'll stop, you'll do one for 10 minutes, take a quick break, set up to do the flash flood, about 10 minutes to mission, and then you'll set up for the wildfire for 10 minutes.
I'm speaking with Staff Sergeant Adam Szabo, who serves in the Marketing and Advertising branch of the National Guard Bureau. So, Sergeant Szabo, let's kind of dig into a little bit more about this. How does putting students in the middle of the mission really help them understand what the Guard does?
It's just So I would say it's more so just to get them to show another to a great side that what we do. I come from the Michigan Army National Guard, so, ice storms, a lot of flash floods too. And those were, a lot of the flash floods that, not a lot, but they were over 5 years ago too that were happening. So that new generation, that uncommon individuals that we're looking for, it's like, hey, this affected your community not too long ago too. So if anything happens, this is the organization you could potentially be a part of, helping your neighbors, your friends, your family. And those are, several of my peers and colleagues. So that's kind of, what we're looking to achieve with this too. Just like, hey, it may not have happened when you remembered, but this is always, something we're willing to be activated for and answer that call.
Is that an explicit message to the students as they participate, or is it just really in response to questions that might come up?
Probably in response to questions that come up too, just like, because like I mentioned too, for example, the activation that we were on in DC, or building this Disasterville event, the earthquakes aren't too common, but they're just curious too to see, hey, do you guys actually respond? It's like, yes, in some states, some areas, regions, we do.
Have you noticed any difference in students who maybe come from military backgrounds versus those who haven't had much exposure to the military?
I guess, so in DC, we actually had the JROTC group that came in too. So speaking of the faculty, the cadre there too, you noticed they were so excited to do it too from that background. So that was great to see.
Has anything really surprised you in the way that the students approach these simulations?
They definitely have fun with it too, just like myself. I wouldn't say anything surprised because, you feel like you're actually there, and it's the group of five, so they're kind of, they're bumping around, maybe hitting each other on the shoulders on accident too, just because it's so, the simulation, they try to make it, somewhat accurate too. But I wouldn't say anything out of the ordinary too. Same as myself reacting to it.
What do you hope that students take away and remember from this experience?
We would like for the students just to show that, hey, if you're looking to be a part of something bigger than yourselves, different organization that, promotes teamwork, camaraderie, and is there for that selfless service, taking care of others. This is a great organization and great team to be a part of that, we're thankful for, and we're looking for those uncommon individuals to join us. As
you roll this out, and you are taking it literally on tour across the country, are there metrics that you're going to be tracking to evaluate whether or not this is a success, other than just it seems like everybody had a great time?
Yeah, that's something my team is working on too, and they could better answer that than me. But that's something they're monitoring too, and be tracking that as well.
Because I would think tracking whether or not any of the students who participate ultimately come back around to a recruiter would be a key piece of this.
Right, and then we'll have National Guard representatives there on site too, so if they are interested in learning more. But even if kids aren't interested in joining, I mean, obviously, we'd love to get those individuals to join our organization. But it's more so just, hey, like, this is what we do, and if there's something that comes up in your community, the Army National Guard is going to be there to assist.
Are you imagining a version 2.0 of this, or is this just sort of a one-time shot and then we'll see what happens?
I see this happening. Definitely, us making adjustments too. I can't speak for that personally too on that decision. That's above my head, but I could see this going a long way in the future, just with the short success that we've had and the feedback we've gotten.
Perhaps bringing in different kinds of scenarios.
It's definitely been discussed, but like I said too, I wish I could make that decision, but we're still, this is a start. But I mean, it's definitely been this discussion for sure.
Are you getting to go on the road with Disasterville?
I'm trying to. My schedule's a little busy at the moment too, but hopefully I can get in some trips because they're actually in Michigan right now, my home state. So so I had a little busy week too. So they're back home right by my brother. So that would have been cool. But hopefully in the near future I can.
I've been speaking with Staff Sergeant Adam Szabo. He serves in the marketing and advertising branch of the National Guard Bureau. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thanks for your service.
Thank you so much for your time, Terry. Appreciate your support.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Listen to the Federal Drive on your schedule. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Still to come, a new drone killer cartridge aims to give Marines a simple, low-cost way to stop small drones with the rifles they already carry. But first, with drones now touching everything from security to agriculture, the University of Texas at El Paso is gearing up to train the people and build the technology that this new landscape demands. You're listening to The Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network. Welcome back to The Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network. The University of Texas at El Paso is strengthening its ability to test next-generation drone and counter-drone systems and to apply them to challenges like border security, disaster response, and infrastructure monitoring. It's part of a growing shift where unmanned systems are becoming essential tools for agencies and communities, not just experimental platforms. We'll explore what that means for drone research and deployment with Aerospace Center Executive Director, Dr. Sherry Welsh. Dr. Welsh, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
The University of Texas at El Paso just got a federal grant to expand your drone program Before we jump into the particulars, tell us what you're doing already and how this grant might change what you're working on.
Yeah, of course. Generally on a day-to-day, the Aerospace Center UAS team runs we're able to run very disciplined cycles of training delivery to soldiers or students or industry. We conduct flight operations out at our Tornillo site, and we work on applied research and actually support local law enforcement in operational test support as well. We also train people to earn their drone pilot license. That's part of the Part 107 academics and flight training that we already provide to various types of people. We build standardized mission scenarios as well, everything from like planning, execution, after action reviews. We collect all that data and then use that to improve our procedures and our training materials.
You mentioned those remote test sites in Tornillo, and you have one in Fabens, right? So as you think about upgrading those facilities, what sort of capacity will you be looking to build?
We'll have so much more capacity with this $2 million congressional funding, first of all. So we're going to be doing a lot of infrastructure upgrades, power computing. So we need a lot more computer power, networking power, because we need networking actually for the beyond visual line of sight, which we will talk about in a little bit. And I'll explain more about that. That's essentially just means you can fly drones remotely without having to be there on site and watch the drones fly. So we'll be setting up classrooms at our Fabens site. We'll have a radar, and we'll also have a radar with upgraded capabilities out at our Tornillo site. So the capacity that will bring us is enormous, primarily because not only does it increase our capabilities, but it actually will drastically increase our throughput, meaning we can do a lot more training. Of course, capability increase equates to we can do a lot more robust training for federal law enforcement, for companies, startup companies that come to us. So, but the throughput is the key there. This will allow us to have a staff, and we're actually have 7 critical positions that need to get filled. We're going to fill those with students, actually train the students and fill those with the students. So of course that makes my heart happy. And we'll be able to actually throughput a lot more training from, the local Fort Bliss soldiers to soldiers anywhere across the U.S., people who are just wanting to come in and take training, and our own students, of course, to be able to take that training as well.
Sounds like you've got a lot of demand for the services that you operate.
We do already. We do. Yes.
Well, let's go back to that beyond visual line of sight waiver that you mentioned, because it's not a very common waiver. So you're one of, I think, 12 places that have it. How does that change the kind of training that you're able to do there at UTEP?
The short answer to help people understand is it takes us from being more in a lab environment, even though we're out in the field. It takes us from being more in a lab environment to an operationally relevant environment. So we can now conduct research and training in a way that looks like real world operations. So beyond visual line of sight authorization allows us our UAS operations where the pilot is not required to maintain direct visual contact with the aircraft at all times, like I mentioned a few minutes ago. So now with that, we can execute much longer range routes because you don't have to be there on the site, and which is really great because our Tornillo site, with that beyond visual line of sight waiver, we have 87 square miles to remotely fly drones out there. We can do much larger area mapping, larger area search and rescue, quick reaction to public safety support. Let's see what else. Remote launch and recover from fixed sites. And fixed sites is really important because then that's where you can have the pilot, the payload operator, the mission commander, all working together remotely at a single site. Without that beyond visual line of sight, training and research are really very limited, which is why this $2 million is very helpful to us, because now we can purchase a radar and have the upgrades necessary to be able to do the networking that we need. Without it, we are limited to short range flights with visual line of sight. So the pilot has to be on site and be able to see the aircraft at all times. And as you can imagine, you can't go very far when you have to keep eyes on. So the visual line of sight, where you have to be there, it's a really important baseline, but it's not really representative, right, of how high value operational missions are executed at scale. So, and now we're going to have that capability. So our being able to scale up like that is going to be a game changer for us.
I'm speaking with Dr. Sherry Welsh. She's the Executive Director of the Aerospace Center at the University of Texas at El Paso. You all at UTEP have been building up this capacity for a while, and you've been engaged with a lot of different kinds of demands for drone training. What is the wildest demand you've had that you think people might not even anticipate?
Oh, that's a good question. The wildest ask that we've had, I won't be able to give you specifics, but I can tell you we get a lot of startups that approach us, and we love working with startups. And a lot of times those startups are in various stages of really trying to figure out what they want to do moving forward. And so they're almost using us like consultants. And so I won't mention any of the companies, of course, but some of them have, just during our brainstorming sessions, have asked a lot of interesting questions. We actually also just met with a heavy lift drone startup where, West Texas especially is very appealing, because with heavy lift drones, meaning they will carry a couple of thousand pounds of cargo. Obviously, they can't fly over urban areas. They can't fly over people, things like that. That is probably, it's not an unusual ask, but it was an unusual startup that came to see us on the heavy lift. So a couple of 1,000-pound cargo payload on a drone is interesting. So, yeah.
Well, we're talking there about corporate uses for drones, but obviously drones are in the headlines from an operational perspective, operations at the southern border, current operations in the Middle East. What kind of research are you doing there at your center that helps expound on and improve collaboration, coordination in the drone space?
Well, the good thing for us is our professor of research who leads this program is a former F-16 pilot. So he comes with a lot of credibility and a tremendous amount of real world operational experience. So luckily he has been at UTEP for several years now. So he has built in great relationships with local and federal law enforcement, Department of Defense, Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security. So that's really already baked into the area and the relationships that we have. It's just without the $2 million congressional funding, we were somewhat limited. We still engaged with all those players, but we were a little limited in what we could do. So now we'll be able to scale up, and our capacity will be much greater. So the relationships are all baked in. So that's wonderful. And we'll continue as we build up the program, and then we'll continue in parallel to go after like federal grants with all three of those departments that I talked about in OSD, and work with startups and industry, being able to do anything that they need. Now we're a little limited on being able to provide what they need, but we won't have that limitation pretty soon.
You've laid out a pretty compelling and aggressive research agenda there for the center. What do you see as the next operational milestones for the unmanned systems program there at UTEP?
Well, our job is research and training, right? So that is in support of all operations, whether it's local law enforcement, supporting the fire department, surveilling agricultural lands, search and rescue, some of the things I mentioned at the beginning, at the top of the interview. So we provide all the training, and we actually conduct applied research to be able to keep UAS operations at the tip of the spear when it comes to innovative technology. Technology is great, but to stay ahead of our adversaries and to stay ahead of the curve, you need research. And so we focus on the applied research to make the improvements, to change designs, to reprogram the drones to be able to have additional capabilities so they can help the technology development and stay ahead of our adversaries. So we're a lot more capable as a country.
I've been speaking with Dr. Sherry Welsh. She's the Executive Director of the Aerospace Center at the University of Texas at El Paso. Dr. Welsh, thanks so much for joining me. We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up next, a new drone killer cartridge aims to give Marines a simple, low-cost way to stop small drones with the rifles they already carry. This is the Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network. As our adversaries lean heavily on small drones for surveillance and strikes, U.S. forces need a response that doesn't slow them down. Engineers focused on low cost and plug-and-play integration, and early testing suggests they may have found the solution. We'll talk through the capability with Brian Hoffman, Manned Portable Weapons Chief Engineer at Naval Surface Warfare Center, Crane. Mr. Hoffman, it's great to have you on the show.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
You've invented a new kind of munition that's designed to kill, I guess is the best way to say it, small drones in a military operation. What was the impetus behind this innovation?
Yeah, so drones in general, as many of your listeners know, are continuing to proliferate on the battlefield. The small drones especially, they're hard to see, they're hard to hit, and a single hit doesn't necessarily guarantee incapacitation. And so overcoming those challenges for us at the Navy, at NSWC Crane, started with understanding the problem set and then trying to develop the right combination of innovation and practicality to develop solutions that would be operationally useful. And so that's where DKC comes into play, Drone Killer Cartridge. We have a product family that helps address the hard to hit and the single hit considerations to that problem set. And so we're offering improved probability of hit and an increased number of hits on target per round fired, which ultimately leads to more effective counter-UAS kinetic kill. And then along with that, critically, DKC is providing those capabilities in a cost-effective way and in a way that inherently reduces collateral damage relative to the use of conventional combat ammunition for the CUAS mission.
So we are, again, just to be clear, talking about these small, like quadcopter remote control drones, not the big Air Force surveillance drones, right?
That is correct. You're talking about the physically smaller scale drones that would be used today.
And so this kind of munition, as I read it in a layman's term, is like birdshot, right? It's a shotgun style sort of pellet. Tell us how it works.
Yeah, in general, that's not too far off from reality. But DKC, the way it increases an operator's readiness and lethality against UAS threats is we're pairing the ammunition with standard issue weapons that are already in service today. So operators can take their rifles, their machine guns, without any gun part modifications and simply pair those guns with DKC. And then DKC, at the crux of the ammunition, it does what we refer to as projectile multiplication, which then leads to the extended range shotgun style effects or birdshot, as you put it. But basically, you're getting more than one sub-projectile dispersed per round fired. But because we're shooting those rounds through rifles and machine guns, we can leverage higher pressures, longer range, higher velocities, higher energies, do more damage at range on target and create more devastating effects. So in a sense, yes, we are creating shotgun style effects. We're getting broader area coverage, not just on the target, but around the target. And that is absolutely critical to help offset imperfect aim. When you think about it, there's definitely a clear analogy to hunting birds with shotguns. You know, there's a good reason why hunters do use shotguns, because hitting aerial targets is not easy. And it's the same challenge fundamentally when it comes to trying to engage and kill drones. And so when we're putting up more projectiles around that space, it helps offset if you don't have the perfect aim. You can still engage with confidence and know that you're going to hit that drone and take down that drone.
You recently ran a live fire exercise where you demonstrated the ammunition. How did that go?
Yeah, it went well. In fact, we've done a number of live fire demos here during the development of DKC. You know, the whole T&E element is critical, not just for us to confirm performance of the ammunition and the product, but it also aligns with one of Crane's core principles of delivering proven solutions. So these are more than just concepts or basically tested products. These are fully developed, mature, demonstrated material solutions. But when I think back to the demos, probably the most compelling thing that stands out to me is there are times we will invite first-time shooters to the firing line who are using shoulder-fired, standard-issue weapons with basic optics and DKC. So there's no advanced fire control. There's no smart optics. These are weapons that are in service today with just DKC, and those first-time shooters are able to successfully engage and kill drones, small drones, anywhere from first shot kills to less than a magazine on average. So watching that, witnessing that was extremely compelling, as you can imagine, not just to us on the team, but all the CUAS stakeholders that were in attendance. And it really helps motivate us to continue to drive hard and try to fast track timelines to initial fielding for this product to help meet urgent need.
I'm speaking with Brian Hoffman. He's the Man-Portable Weapons Chief Engineer at Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane. Well, I can imagine that success in your demonstrations also motivates a desire on the part of the fighting units to get this munition in their hands more quickly. What is the fielding schedule and the deployment guidance for this new munition?
Yeah, certainly the urgent need exists across the board when you look at U.S. military, Department of War, other government agencies. So every time we engage with stakeholders and operators, we show them DKC, we show the capabilities. They want what we have today. Of course, these specific timelines are dependent on which service you're talking about, which customer set ultimately, but the Navy, NSWC Crane, will fully mature all product sets first. That means we'll take it through full qualification testing, obtain the necessary safety approvals for use in support of wide fielding. And at that point, we will open up more widely the ability for operators to source and use DKC.
Do you imagine that this munition remains a military article, or might it have utility in other sort of civilian defense operations like border protection or civil event protection even?
Yeah, most definitely. We obviously developed DKC for military use, but there are other government agency applications, certainly DHS, Border Patrol, and even beyond military and OGA use. There is expected appetite even for commercialization of some of this ammunition for things like home defense, personal protection, perhaps some hunting applications even. There's definitely broader use when you look at the overall capability and envision how that can be used and the benefits of the ammo.
As we were speaking at the beginning, you mentioned a couple of factors here: ease of deployment, ease of use, and low cost. How did those factor into your product design?
Yeah, so for us, it's always more than just developing effective capabilities, especially in today's climate. We prioritize affordability and ease of integration. You know, that also aligns with Crane's core principle of our general business excellence, the way we approach developing new products. So we wanted to ensure that we were meeting the business case, low unit cost of the ammo, as well as low cost per kill metrics. And this is intended for small caliber applications. So we're trying to develop an effective counter-UAS kinetic kill capability that redefines that cost curve for what that looks like. You know, not every organization can shoot $2 million missiles to take out small drones. So with DKC, we're trying to develop an affordable, effective product that will be available to the masses as a function of those attributes. And then in terms of integration, that's another key piece for us to have that broadly accepted by the operators. We want this seamless. And so the way we designed the ammunition, we're reusing the same cartridge case, the same primer, the same propellant that's being used today in the production of other fielded ball ammunition types for the U.S. military. So that helps keep things simple, keeps things low cost. And as a function of all that, we are able to check the box, not just on affordability, but with integration, seamless integration. So if you have a weapon system out there today that you're using, if you can shoot standard ball ammo, you can fire DKC and expect that system to run as reliably as it always would.
Sometimes actual operations have a way of accelerating deployment timelines, given sort of the current operations of the U.S. military in Iran. Do you anticipate that this ammunition might be in demand more quickly, and might there be a plan to get this to the battlefield sooner?
Yeah, so we have socialized this capability for some time now. So we've done our due diligence in engaging the key CUAS stakeholders among DOW, OGAs, and even some foreign partners. Obviously, with the current events, I would expect that visibility or interest may be heightened on not just DKC, but CUAS kinetic kill capabilities in general. So there's always a possibility that current events could help fast track use of these products.
Well, I've been speaking with Brian Hoffman. He's Man-Portable Weapons Chief Engineer at Naval Surface Warfare Center, Crane. Mr. Hoffman, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts. The Postal Service says it's close to running out of cash and may need to cut delivery days. USPS is asking lawmakers to step in and offer some assistance. Congress passed major postal reform legislation 4 years ago, but the mail agency is still seeing multi-billion-dollar annual net losses. Federal News Network's Jory Heckman is here with more details. Jory, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Terry.
How dire are the Postal Service's financials?
The Postal Service and Postmaster General David Steiner, they're telling lawmakers, they're telling members of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee that the agency is less than a year away from running out of cash. They've been posting multi-billion-dollar net losses in recent years, even after Congress stepped in and passed the Postal Service Reform Act back in 2022. That was a piece of legislation that wiped about $107 billion in liabilities off of the USPS's ledger. And despite that, they are still in these dire financial straits. And they say that there's some things that Congress can do that USPS can't do on its own that is really necessary to right the ship here. And Steiner told lawmakers that if the day comes that they run out of cash and they don't get assistance, they may need to make some difficult choices, including cutting delivery days or closing post offices.
If you want the same number of delivery days and post offices, we can do that, but someone has to pay for it.
Are there underlying structural issues here?
Yeah, the structural issue is really just a wholesale decline in mail volume for about the past 20 years or so. That mail volume peaked around 2006 or so, and then shortly around the 2008 recession, mail volume continued to go in free fall. That we are looking at about half the mail volume today that we saw back in 2006. And if you price that out to the current price of a stamp, which is 78 cents, this is a $81 billion loss in revenue that USPS is trying to make up for.
So what relief are they asking for from Congress?
They're asking for a number of things. Chief among them, USPS is asking Congress to increase its currently maxed out borrowing limit with the Treasury Department. That limit is currently capped at $15 billion. USPS says that there's really no other way it can borrow funds for its capital investments. It's trying to level up its delivery network across the country, and that they would need more borrowing authority to do that. They say that the $15 billion borrowing limit is outdated, and that if you adjust for inflation compared to back when that limit was set, that would be a limit of around $30, maybe $40 billion. So that's one thing they're asking about. Also, USPS is unique amongst agencies. They can only invest their pension funds, the retirement funds for employees, in low-risk, low-reward Treasury bonds. This is something that USPS says that's just not a financially viable thing for them to do going forward, and that had they had a different mix in investments, that they would be in a much different financial situation. And finally, USPS is asking for the Office of Personnel Management to take a closer look at its contributions to CSRS employees. Those employees are still around for USPS, and they say that ever since the 1970s, when USPS went from the U.S. Post Office to the U.S. Postal Service, they unfairly shouldered some of the burden for those CSRS employees, and they are asking OPM to sharpen their pencils and take a closer look at that.
What sort of reception did these requests get during the testimony and since?
Particularly from Republican lawmakers, you got a real sense of frustration that there was a real coming together back in 2022 to make this postal reform legislation a reality. This is something that Congress had kicked around for truly like a decade. And it was only up until 2022 that they were able to make that a reality. This was then former Postmaster General Louis DeJoy really working his contacts up on Capitol Hill, convincing Republican lawmakers that this was a necessary thing to do. And now, not even 5 years later, they're being told that they need more help from Congress. So that's a real point of frustration that USPS is, again, hat in hand asking for help, even though they've been on this 10-year reform plan, saying that they can do so much of this reform on their own, cut costs, and generate more revenue. That just hasn't materialized yet.
And if they do have to set higher prices, you mentioned current first-class postage at 78 cents, how high might that go?
Steiner said that could be close to $1 if USPS had its way. There are, of course, some other forces at work here that the Postal Regulatory Commission, they have since stepped in and said that USPS between now and 2030, they will be limited to one price hike per calendar year. That ever since 2020, the USPS regulator gave the agency the authority to set twice a year mail rate increases, and they've been using that to great effect. Prices keep going up, and that typically happens every January and every July. And so under these new rules, the regulator says you have to pick one. You have to do one increase a year. The USPS has countered that and saying that they should actually have more authority to set higher prices, not just this more modest increase that they've been allowed to do.
Jory, in communities all across America, the Postal Service is the only mail delivery game in town. What happens if they don't get support from Congress? What are their options here?
Steiner does say that all things are on the table at this point, that they are hopefully trying to see if the Congress will be able to help them out here, offer some long-term financial relief. The Government Accountability Office also believes that this is something beyond USPS tackling on its own, that they do need help from Congress to handle what they deem as an unsustainable business model. But in the event that Congress says, no, actually, you're on your own, Steiner did say that there are options on the table to consider layoffs of employees. The labor costs are a substantial part of USPS's overhead, and also the idea of a hiring freeze. Steiner said that they'd have to be strategic about what that looks like. He says that you couldn't do a hiring freeze for letter carriers, for example, the frontline employees who are delivering that mail to 163 million addresses 6 days a week. But you'd have to maybe look at some of the mail processing side of things, the people who work in the post offices themselves, the postal clerks. It is a big workforce. It's a massive workforce of hundreds of thousands of employees. They'd have to find some place to limit hiring if that is what transpires.
What's the next signal we should be watching for and how this is going to play out?
Well, we'll certainly see whether lawmakers are on board with any kind of reform proposal or not. These things don't happen overnight, and USPS really is saying that this is a crisis situation. I will say the less than a year timeline assumes that USPS continues to pay all of its bills on time. Back in the peak pandemic times of 2020, USPS did kind of rely on some extraordinary measures. They didn't always pay all of their contributions to the retiree fund on time. They said that because of the acute financial situation, when they were going to run out of cash back then, that they were going to not pay some of their bills on time. So that is something that USPS may be able to do to buy themselves a little bit more time. But the real question is, as Steiner put it, what level of service the American public wants, and how do you expect to pay for it, and who is ultimately going to be paying for that? USPS, under its current model, they are more or less entirely self-funded. They are using the revenue from those stamps and from those packages to self-fund their operations. And so whether they need an injection of cash from Congress or not, that's also on the table. A lot of open questions that we don't have answers to just yet.
Thanks, Jory. That's Federal News Network's Jory Heckman.
Thanks, Terry.
You can find his story at federalnewsnetwork.com. The Federal Drive with Terry Gerton is produced by Eric White and Michelle Sandiford. Our web editor is Stephanie Wright. For the latest updates, stay with federalnewsnetwork.com or follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I'm Terry Gerton. Thanks for listening.